dude. Right. Oh,
cheers. I heard that.
I'm behaving myself. I'm on Dr. Pepper. It's a disgrace. This is not actually adult, like ad placement here, unless
We don't make that kind of money, unfortunately.
No.
This is like beer, so I don't know if it really counts, honestly.
Well, I do have some nice rum in the room with me. So, guys, apparently we might be live now. We might not. The reason for this is that Facebook made some changes recently, so different things are coming through. We might be live, as I say, we might not. But welcome if you have come along, and if you haven't, sod you, I don't care anyway. I didn't love you. And I've got the wonderful Kirrin here with us tonight, just basically to talk some shit, have a bit of a catch up, and because this is an excuse for me to get to know people that I haven't met properly, or that I really want to meet. Because Kyle is a fucking legendary author, aren't you, Sue?
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's true. I mean, you're the Ripple system. So Shadeslinger was the first one, and it's brilliant. I've been a massive fan of it since it came out. You got the 4 books out so far.
Yeah.
Is there a 5th one coming soon? Is there what's going on?
It is, yeah. It's going to be Emperor's End. It actually should be starting recording here in like 4 or 5 days, I think. Should be sometime this week.
Nice.
So it'll probably be either late this month or early next month. It'll be released, both audio and ebook.
Damn, that's fast. Getting it turned around that quick.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. Once it goes to the audio, it's pretty much like all on that. It all syncs up. So as soon as that's out, we just put it through as fast as we possibly can.
Just straightforward.
No pre-orders or anything this time. So it's always interesting because I never actually know exactly when it's going to come out. You just like get a message on your phone and you're just like hopping awake and like messaging on Reddit and Discord, and suddenly it's on.
Yeah. For those that don't know, basically the wonderful system that is ACX, that is Amazon and so on, basically means that they say things like, you upload the document, you upload the recording, and you say, there you go, it's ready to go. And you have the option to either set a pre-order or to press like launch now. And Amazon will respond to that when they feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes live literally when they feel like it. I mean, sometimes it will go live in like 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had one that I've been chasing for like 4 days. And you're like...
Yeah, and then sometimes it's like 5 weeks.
Yeah, especially
you're just like
and people are messaging you going, what's going on? Is this coming out or not? You're like, I'm doing everything I can.
Can't really provide an update either because there's no update.
Yeah, it's
like
just
working as intended, anywhere from 6 hours to 476, and you're good to go.
Yeah,
that's always fun. We had a pre-order for the last one, which was nice, but it was also a little scary, like having to nail a date down. With this, it's like Travis is so busy that it lets him sort of like move it wherever and just makes it a lot easier.
Well, that's the thing as well, because Travis is so good and he's so well known. Now, I mean, he's got such an overwhelming sort of following that's just for him. Never mind the following you've got for your books as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a huge part of the success for, especially like the audio, is people who were willing to try it out in the first place because he was doing it. Because like, I mean, that's how when I do audio, I mostly do that anymore. Like that's almost exclusively like how I start new stuff. I pick a narrator who I love and I go through and I filter and I look, and it's just such an easy thing to do. But he is so talented, man.
He is. It's fucking scary. And the amount of times I've been like, bastard. I don't plan enough. I mean, I write and it's sort of like it's finished. It gets through the editing. Cause I don't know how you do things. I do like a 3-month editing cycle usually. So
I think your releases are a bit quicker than mine too, though. I mean, you've got so many series, man. Congratulations on a rise to it. That's wrapped now, right? On your end?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's book 5 comes out in 6 days. Paul, you alright, dude?
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, Richie. So book 5 comes out in 6 days, but then there's going to be about BJ. Probably about, I think, 4 months after that, 3 months after that. It's August, it's the end of August for the audio for that one.
Oh, very cool.
Then I've got like book 6 is now totally finished, really, and it's been sent off to my editor. But the way that I work with editing is it goes, so my dev editor does it first. She takes her about a month because they're decent size, like yourself. It's sort of 267, I think, this one.
Ooh, that's a chunky boy.
Yeah, so that'll take about a month. and then it'll come back to me. I'll just do a quick sort of pass through, fix things that she's picked up on, or that, and then it'll go off to line edits. Then it'll come back. Then it'll go to Dantas, who's my line and sort of my science and continuity guy, because he basically knows that if I did this in this book, he needs to still be like that. Paul, you send me the rum and I'll get naked. I told you this. You didn't send the rum. This is what you get. You get me with clothes on. Jay sent me nipple tassels and rum. I got the nipple tassels on. I got them out. But it's a case of that one's going to be, I think, July 26th off the top of my head. That one's going to be released, and then that's, as you say, that's it. The series is done. But
that's amazing. How does that feel? Is that like
really weird?
Yeah.
Because I mean, that when you release the book, you've written it. I don't know how you do it. Yeah, okay, Richard does. Richie, you totally right. The barbecue chips count for something, and those photos will be coming to you later. They're of my feet. So I've just totally lost what I was saying there with that terrible image of me just sending random feet pictures to poor Richie.
Just how it feels to finish the.
Yeah, sorry, dude. So with the book, because when you finish a book, you know that you've written the story that you wanted it to be, but you don't know until people start reading it and giving the feedback if it's actually any good, or if you've just gone off on a total tangent. And it's like, I know that I've told the story that I intended to tell, but I won't know until it's released and it's come back to me if that was the story that people wanted to read. And it's like,
yeah, it's scary. It's always like hard to hit that, like the send button at the very end, like things are finalized and you have all your like different documents, like you have final version 3, final version 4, and they like go through. And
honestly, this is the last final. Yeah.
Yeah. Mike right now is just so many drafts for this last one. But it sounds like mine's pretty similar for editing. I probably spend about the same amount of time editing as I do drafting. So it's probably like 3 to 4 months to draft a book, and then 3 to 4 months of editing. I do have a dev editor as well. And then once it's all wrapped, it goes into copy editing, and then we go directly into audio. Everything is kind of scheduled around Travis's schedule, just because that's like the biggest choke point.
Yeah, definitely. But, I mean, I've done deals for all of mine with Audible, with Podium, with Tantor. So it's a case of, for me, once I'm finished with the actual book and it's ready, I just upload, and before formatting, it's just a case of, there you go, that is now yours. Come back to me when you know something else. And so that's when I know it's like, it's going to be August at some point for it. I have no clue for Arise 6 audio. It'll probably be, I don't know, 2-3 months after that. So hopefully they'll all be out by the end of the year. Like Kyle, the part where Frank threatens House's cats and she goes full serial killer threats against him, that was my favorite part. That is brilliant. I've got to agree with that. Because House is so like...
She's so fun.
She is, yeah.
Great counterpoint for Frank. I feel like it really like if I could do like book 1 differently, like I'd have had her come in a lot earlier.
Yeah. I don't know. I think
sure.
It works well with the way that she's sort of, because it's just building up to, you can see it's going to go a bit out of control, and then she's like, here I am, I'm the stable. So that's a point. So I write my characters, I always have the female character. The main character is pretty much big and dumb, like me. The female character is very much, what about the versions fixing errors introduced by Amazon for things like special characters? And like, I hate those. I hate fixing them for Amazon's little. But
errors detected and all that.
I don't get them anymore.
So, really?
No, not for any. Oh, I'm so good, I don't get them. No, there was. So when I did the Artem project, when the first book released, I was on Royal Road with it, and somebody took it off Royal Road and put it up on Amazon and released it themselves.
Yeah.
And when they did that, they reported me for plagiarism.
Really?
Amazon froze my account.
Wow.
Yeah. So when they did that, though, they broke a part of my account. They don't know what happened. But Amazon basically, they froze my account for the day. It was only the day. But all the sales that were going through still went through. All the people that downloaded the book, it still went through. And Amazon said it didn't. Wow. But all of the people that I spoke to that had pre-ordered it, they all got their stuff and all the money went. It just never came to me, which was always But also the page reads never went through from the first day's downloads. So it means that it's always been like a tiny little amount. So the actual sales numbers, you look at it, it's totally different to what we actually can see went through. But Richie, but then what happened with it was that when this happened, they'd frozen my account. And I had a couple of books that, when you get like, oh, we found a typo here, we found a typo here, fix them. And we'd reported it, we'd filled out the changes, and we sent it in, and nothing happened. And we thought nothing of it until about a month later when I looked and found that they were still outstanding. And then we sort of raised them and went, oh, there's a problem here. And they went, oh, yeah, you haven't filled it out properly, do it again. No problem. Did that, raised it, sent it off, think nothing of it. About 2 months later, we look at it and go, well, the only errors we've had in all this time now are just those same errors. They haven't ever been accepted as being fixed in these totally different books.
Yeah.
And then we raised it again with them, and their support team got in touch and said, oh, there's a problem with your account. Don't worry about it. We're dealing with it. Fair enough. And that's been it since August last year.
So just break it, basically.
Yeah. But if you speak to customer services, they just go, yeah, exactly. But if you speak to customer services, they just go, oh, you haven't replaced it. And I'm going, no, we have. If you look at the transcript,
over and over.
Oh, right, yeah, we'll get the support team to get back to you. And then the support team, after about 2 months, messages saying everything's resolved. And you go, but I can still see just these errors and nothing else. No other errors that have been reported. And people have told me that they've reported an error. Thank you, Earl. They've reported an error, and it's just not showing up.
Yeah,
and so I'm terrified.
Broke it, basically. Yeah, that's scary, honestly. It's like those things add up, and all of a sudden they just pull the book.
Exactly. So, I mean, I'm constantly sort of checking them going, because what will happen is when it finally does get kicked off, all of those errors will all come through at once. And it'll just be every one will have like...
Yeah, it's like an avalanche, basically. Yeah, that's not fun. That's typical. Yeah. Small indie publisher, right? Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they don't know what they're doing. They just make it up as they go along. Paul, if I could turn Amazon off and on again, I fucking would. But then again, spill your can.
Oh, no, I just spilled beer on my dad's notebook.
Ooh, not too popular.
That's okay. I'll just feed it to the plants.
Yeah,
I got spider plants.
Grow better. Probably make them grow better. But yeah, for those that don't know, basically with Amazon, if you report an error in the books, like say on Kindle Unlimited, we get a message. We didn't used to get any messages. Now it shows at the top of our page saying, I paid the moon to call, Rich stupid. Sorry, bud. Fucking Jordan. But if you get like a lot of these errors, and you don't address it, you get a quality warning on your book. And then after that, if you still haven't addressed it, they just pull your book from sale. And the problem is that if you've got loads of them, that's what happens. They didn't used to tell you. You used to have to go hunting through the different menus to find it and then go, shit, I've got some again. And now it's at the top of our reports page, which is a lot easier. But it's fucking terrifying not knowing if it's going to come up again like tomorrow for 300 errors. Because I've had people go through my books and say things like, oh, well, you've used you've used floor instead of ground. And that's wrong. And in some instances, UK to US, we have different phrasing. So that will be true. And it's like, oh, yeah, for your sensibility, it should have been ground. Yeah, I can understand that. I should change that. But I had one guy go through and Control F all of them and report them all in all my books. So he was obviously just playing games because he changed it to things like a recommendation. This should be ground, not floor. Ocean ground instead of ocean floor. Forest floor. Or forest ground.
Control F gets you in trouble real quick.
Yeah. So what if the error report is bogus? Ed, that is exactly the point. It's literally a case of when we've had this happen, you can report the error. You can report the report, essentially. And if enough people have done that, and if it's looked at enough, then Amazon will actually physically look at it. And from what I've been told, what they then do is ban the person that's been making those reports.
Really? That's cool.
From what I've been told. Whether it's true or not, but it's like, when you get to that point when you've got like 400 reports of ground to floor, you're like, bastard.
Yeah.
And then
or like
hearing afterwards.
Spellings, right? With like gray and gray or like color or something. And it's like a huge like UK audience. And those things. I honestly, I can't keep any of it straight. Every single book, my copy editor like very patiently explains all the differences to me, and I memorize it, and then I get it wrong again, and I'm just like, I don't know.
Dude, I'm exactly the same. I literally give it. I have an American copy editor for this reason, so that she can change all of my correct spellings into your Americans.
Get rid of all those U's.
Yeah, add in random Z's and stuff like that. And you're like, why have you done this? Strange people. But no, it's one of those things that you have to do. It's we accept that 85% of my market is American. So as much as I would prefer to have UK spellings, what's the point? I'd rather you've got to be realistic about these things.
Yeah, especially on Kindle, where success is like predicated on someone picking up a book and continuing to read it and then finishing it, right? And if you've got misspellings like that, people read it, they drop the book, and it really affects you.
Massively so. I like the ones where people also add in little comments saying the word you're searching for is this, and you really want to be able to respond to it, saying, no, it's not. The word I was searching for was the one I used. I've said for years what we should be allowed to do is have like a Dragon Con or Jordan Con or wherever, we should have like an octagon ring and just be like, right, come and join me in here. Let's discuss this. And the hard, Jesus, yes, they do. They absolutely hate all those things. I've got one of those. What's the phrase for it? Like the A and E combined. Do you know which one I mean? Like the letter the A and E combined.
I have no idea what it's called, but I
don't know what it's called. But yeah, I use that in the last books in the series quite a lot because it's like the main bad guys are called the Andari, and it's like, oh, this is going to be a nightmare coming back, but it's the name of them, and I was like, oh, I've already done it for book 5. Oh, yeah, fuck it.
Yeah,
it'll be what it'll be. Yeah.
Yep.
So, dude, how did you get started? Books. Byron, you bastard. How did you get started writing then? What made you start writing?
Like lit RPG or just writing in general?
Just writing in general.
Writing in general. I just kind of enjoyed it, honestly. Like I probably started like trying to do it seriously in college. I was like an English major. And then from then on, I just took like weird jobs that would let me write on the side. Like I did tree work for a while. I climbed with a chainsaw. I taught snowboarding for like 10 years. I did like wine tasting. So like anything that gave me like a bunch of like free time and days. And I wrote just like general fantasy until like 2018, 2019. And then someone introduced me to lit RPG. I went through and started reading like all the big ones at the time, like The Land, Awaken, Ascend, Completionist, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's sort of when I started writing Ripple System. And then from then on, it's been just Ripple System for the last couple of years. So yeah, it's been really cool. It's like I think the pandemic like really accelerated everything for sure.
Massively so, because so many people were off and had that time that had never had the time to write before.
And like you're just inside, you're sitting there, and it's like I think I wrote like 3 books in that period, and Ripple was the one that I ended up sending to Portal and moving ahead with. But the original draft of it was only like 100,000 words. It was like less than half the size of what eventually ended up being published.
Yeah.
It's been weird. It's been like 3 years now being full time. Super lucky. Very happy with how it's done. But it's a weird world, man.
Yeah.
And you started around the same time too, right? I think you were. Yeah. Was your first one like 2019?
2020, yeah. It was like literally I launched in the April and lockdown kicked in the UK at the end of March. So I literally launched. I was fantastically lucky in that I launched when loads of people were stuck in the house doing nothing, trying to figure out their lives. And I was like, here's a free book, Kindle Unlimited. So it's free basically. And it just went, I wasn't expecting it to go like that. And when it went out and went so well, and I was like, shit, I've got to write book 2 now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been furloughed, so I don't know if you had that in America, where it was a case of we were basically paid to stay at home, and the government covered a lot of it and just stayed at home, and I was like, right, well, what do I do here? And my wife was saying, well, this is making a decent money. It's get in that goddamn office, get out the way, because I was, underfoot, daring to be in the house. And I was shooed out of the way and shooed into my office, and I just started writing. Because I was working in IT at the time, and at first we were needed a bit, and then they were very happy to lay us off once things had calmed down a bit. And I just went a bit mad. So it was really good. I mean, I couldn't have written book 2 anywhere near as quickly if I hadn't been furloughed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah, it's a crazy time. And then once the treadmill starts, you're just on it. And now here we are, 3 years later, 3.5 years later.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, Paul. And it's just a case of you just sprint and you just keep sprinting because that's a good point. How do you write? How do you do your normal day?
So I usually do 2,000 to 3,000 words a day, every day. So like when I'm drafting, I don't usually take days off. It's usually pretty quick. Like it probably takes me like 3 to 4 hours of actual work, and then like 6 or 7 hours of like, if you count all the like staring at my phone and like pacing around and like procrastinating. But I just do that until I'm at something like 150 to 180,000 words. Or if I hit a really weird point and then I want to stop and I'll go back and edit and shift things around and then catch back up. And I sort of just repeat that until I get to the point where it's like the whole story's told and then the edits kind of start all over again. So it's like these like just kind of loops back and forth. I always occasionally, yeah. That's one of the perks, honestly, is not having to.
My wife complains.
Yeah, my neighbors do too. Yeah, I actually like the drafting because it gives you such like a schedule. Like you have your 3,000 words, and like once you have them, you're just done. With editing, it's always so weird because like you might have something that's really rough, and you spend like an hour working on like 2 pages. And it's like, how much actual like work did you get done? That part's always. I actually kind of like editing, but the lack of routine really kills me.
I'm very much a routine animal. I need to have, because otherwise, I know I'm a lazy bastard.
Yeah,
I know that I would very happily write Helldivers for the next 6 hours, provided it's Helldivers with friends. Because Helldivers.
I've been putting it off because I know that I would just like I would disappear, and I can't afford to do that yet.
Dude, get it? Join me. Come and join my group. The thing is that if you're playing with randoms, because it's always like 4 people in a squad, it's shit because you'll just be like, right, let's all go for this objective. And you turn around and one's off over there, 2 in that direction, and you're on your own, just going, well, I'm fucked now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've been playing Smite a little bit online, and like you'll just get people, and you just like sometimes you wonder if it's like bots. Like you'll have someone who'll go like 0-27 in your group in like 7 minutes, and like you just don't know if it's intentional or what. Like, man,
it's mad. But then other times you play with like a good group, like some good friends, and it's fantastic. And you finish, and the missions are generally about 40 minutes or thereabouts, and you sort of race around the map, and you've killed loads of fuckers, and you're just having a great laugh. And it's brilliant fun. I mean, like, if you've got Michael Head on your team, for example, it doesn't matter what the objective is. It doesn't matter what's going on. He is that way, about 6 miles, doing something completely unconnected to anything else, shouting about having found the door of friendship. Shit like that. And you're like, for fuck's sake, Head. And we all have to run off after him because every so often he'll just scream that, half the entire map is chasing him. And it'll always end up as he still lives. He still survives. But all of us that run in to help end up dying.
That's a devious plan. Did you ever play MMOs like in the early days?
Yeah. I mean, I played World of Warcraft a bit. I played it a lot, but only for a short period of time. I lived in the Dales, which for us is like deepest, darkest Yorkshire. It's like up in the moors and the hills.
Mm-hmm.
And when I love Smite. I've been playing it since beta, and for the first time, I decided to go hard and ranked. Nice, well done, Jordan.
Yeah, 2100 is super solid.
Nice.
Honestly, like ranked just makes me so mad. I just can't do it. I get way too invested, and I'm not good enough to be that invested. But I played so much World of Warcraft. Quarter Alliance, I played both. One of those. Unfortunately,
I was generally Alliance, but it was a case of, for me, I'd split it with the ex. I needed to get away, and I went to this little hotel in the middle of the Yorkshire Dales, and I stayed there for about a year and a half. And I had a very, very poor internet connection, and I was away from everybody, like all my old friends and everything. So all I had was this game, and I played it ridiculously, and I loved it. And then
Yeah.
I moved back to sort of the Newcastle area a year and a half later, and now there were bars again and scantily clad ladies. And suddenly I didn't have time to play World of Warcraft anymore because I was working and alcohol. So, but it was brilliant fun. I really did enjoy it.
Was that vanilla at the time? Was that the first one?
No. Well, the vanilla was out. There was a couple of them. It was
Burning Crusade.
don't think it was. I don't know which one it was. There was. I know the underwater one launched just as I finished playing, just as I stopped playing. The underwater one had come out, but I can't remember what that was.
Like Vashir or something like that. Yeah,
Couldn't tell you, to be honest. I just remember it being sort of like, for fuck's sake, it's just doing more and more of the same thing over and over, and after a while, I got a bit sick of it.
Yeah, I haven't played the last. This was kind of already was around the time when I quit as well. I went back and played Battle for Azeroth briefly, but God, I played that game nonstop from like closed beta all the way up through Wrath of the Lich King, like just constantly. I think you can like see like Ripple system basically is like when I was in college, I was just playing World of Warcraft and like skipping class. And then ironically, it ended up being like a pretty good decision. Like, if anything, I should have just played more World of Warcraft. Like,
Exactly. But that's the thing. For all of us that were gamers, that were heavy gamers, lit RPG is just a natural progression. Because it's just like, this is what I did for years. This is when everybody was telling you, you're never going to get a job doing that. You've wasted your time. Actually, it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed it, though. Elder Scrolls and Elder Scrolls Online. Did you do online?
I didn't do online. I did play Skyrim obsessively, along with like I think every single person on the planet when that game first came out. I was going to my first full-time snowboarding job, and I brought my Xbox and I was plugging it in and playing Skyrim at every hotel, heading out west along the way, just like squeezing in every possible hour.
Yeah,
dude, so
definitely.
So
I used to work at one point. I was working for EE and for Orange before they became EE, and I'd work sort of 12-hour shifts before I got into welding. And it was a case of you work a 12-hour shift, you work sort of 3 12-hour shifts, and then you'd have 3 days off. Then you'd have like 4 shifts, then you'd have 4 days off. And it always worked like that. And I'd be just like, right, there's me 3 days of wasted time at work. And now I've got a case of energy drinks, a big box of crisps, as you call them, chips, and just like some random shit in me flat. And I was like, right, that's it. Skyrim for the next 3 days.
Yep. Yeah.
It was brilliant. But Elder Scrolls Online was crap.
Was it really?
I was never impressed with it. I was like, yeah, it's all right. Like Fallout Online. Fallout? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Was that 76?
Yeah.
Yeah. I never played that one. I heard they made like a ton of changes to improve it. I did play Fallout 4, like, God, way too much. I probably spent just days of time just trying to figure out how to get mods to work, let alone like actually playing the game. Yeah. Trying to get all those weapon mods in, and like all the guns would end up invisible. So good.
I definitely spent too much time on that as well, but I still enjoyed it. Though the game I probably keep coming back to, and I always will, is Civilization.
I have so many hours on. This is like the only one I played is Civ 6, which I know is not like a super popular opinion among Civilization players. But I played the shit out of that game. I used to try to see how quickly I could get science victories done. I got all the other ones under 100. I got science to like turn 110, I think. Was like the fastest for that. I could never go sub 100, but that game is just so addicting, man. Holy cow.
Because it's just one more turn.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever like fast paced. You're just like, I'll just do fucking hell, it's 4 a.m. Jesus.
Yeah, it just melts away. Like I ironically actually started playing that as research for Ripple system. I was like, I'll do some town building. I haven't really played any games like that like recently. I'll just try this and see what it's like. And then like, you know, like a week and a half later, it's like got this like nasty beard and I'm just like crawling out like into the daylight. Like, holy cow. So good. And it's like the randomness is like so good. It's like something I'm always thinking about for lit RPG, but like there's no way to like fully replicate it, you know? Because like if you make something random in a book, it just doesn't feel the same as knowing that so it's just not like not picking something, you know? Like
so with Civ, who's your go-to leader?
Oh man. Probably Peter, honestly.
Yeah.
They made a bunch of changes. I don't know if you're still playing or 6 at all, but they weakened him a good bit. But he used to have some just insane abilities. He was fine for like religion and science and conquest like all at once. Second would probably be like Hammurabi. Because he was just a weird sort of science thing, like based on like pillaging. What about you?
Trajan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I've gone through all of the others, but it's always if I'm when you just go I'm just going to play for a little bit. It's always Trajan I go for, and it's
the free monuments. Is that him?
Is he what?
He gets the free monuments, right? Is that him? Yeah.
And the roads,
The roads,
the free roads between each of the cities.
That one like melee unit, I think. Imperials, is that them?
Legions.
Legions, yeah, okay, yeah.
But yeah, it's always that one that I go back to, just because it's comfortable. And when you're just going to do it, and you're playing, because I mean, do you play on King or an Emperor?
Deity.
Nice.
Yeah.
You fucking legend. So if I'm just going to play normally, I'll be like either on King or I'll be on Emperor, and I'm just like, that'll do me. I'm just chilling out.
Yeah.
And just killing a bit of time and enjoying it. And I've probably got about nearly 1,000 hours in that. And I loved all the other Civ games. I loved literally, I think Civ 2 I started with. And every time they've come out, I've loved them. But it's a case of you start playing the new one, and the old one's graphics are crap in comparison generally. And I'm a graphics snob. I never want to go back to the shitty graphics.
It's really hard to step back. It's such a bad feeling, man. Like, I recently, I don't know if you ever played Lineage 2 at all.
No.
It was like an MMO back in the day. Super, super grindy. I think it was out a little bit before World of Warcraft, and then it died when World of Warcraft just like exploded. But I decided I wanted to go back to a private server on that like 5 or 6 years ago, and I booted it up. I was like, oh my God, this looks terrible. And I just like couldn't do it. And I had so much fun playing it, but like once that expectation changes, like you just can't go back. Like it's hard in that way.
I keep looking at, apparently they've done an update to Fallout 4 that now has next gen graphics. And I keep looking at it and going, I've downloaded it, I've got it on there, and it's like, no. But I have a quick question for you there, dude.
Very well, actually. Yes, as far as I know, his nipples are normal. Not exactly a transplant, thankfully.
Yeah, right. No, we definitely don't, Kyle, honestly. Jesus, the weird shit that we come up with, to be fair, is...
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I did not think I'd have a career largely built on shaft jokes.
And yet...
here we are.
Exactly. Like Matt Dinnerman's book scares you. Yeah, Byron, Matt has issues. If you get Matt Dinnerman drunk, you'll find out that he has massive issues. And he's a great guy, but fuck, he's got issues. In a good way. But, we all do. He's just sitting there sometimes and you just go, what's wrong with you? Who hurt you? Especially, I feel really bad for him because we were talking about this at Jordan Con. And both the joke about, the feet in about this AI being obsessed with feet, and people are convinced that Matt Dinnerman is, and people regularly send him photos of feet, and he did it as a throwaway joke. And
and now you just live there basically. Yeah, I got in trouble with my my editor for the same reason. I kept telling people that he liked feet, and then eventually someone sent him a photo of their feet, and then I had to stop making the joke.
Yeah.
Ooh, line has been crossed. I thought it was hilarious personally, but
Yeah. Sometimes you have to fuck with people. It's not even
yeah,
sometimes. You have to fuck with people
like
a lot.
we have a lot of fun. Like in Word, you can make comments.
Yeah.
And you can go through and you can actually edit someone else's comment and you can like make them say ridiculous things, but it just says like their name. So it's like an ongoing war of like who can change comments before it goes to the copy editor. So it's a lot of fun. Probably a lot more productive if that wasn't like 30% of my focus, but keeps me sane. So
Oh god. See, some of the editors I've worked with in the past, I would do that with, and they would have absolutely loved it. The editors I work with now, it's generally a case of Michelle, for example, my dev editor. Everything goes off to her, and then it just comes back, and then I work through. She doesn't see it again after that point.
oh, okay, yeah,
So that wouldn't work. But Jesus, I mean, she already thinks there's a lot of things wrong with me. So I've just got. I used to have an editor. Unfortunately, didn't work out in the end. But he used to send me things like, "Why are you like this? Who hurt you?" And I'd just be like, "Eh."
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. Yeah, I love my editor. He's a great guy. Copy editor too. They're fantastic people. It's amazing, like the things that we miss. Like I'm actually going through the copy edits for book 5 right now, and I'm looking at it and I pull it up. I'm like, there's no way I have like 4 errors on this page. I'm like, oh shit, I do actually.
Yeah.
And like you've read it so many times, but it just I don't know. It's like your brain just fills in the gaps.
I have like a set rule with any book that when it's I read it, I write it in one go.
Mm-hmm.
Then I come back to me and I'll do like a full edit pass.
Yeah.
And as I'm writing it the first time round, I'll make notes saying things like, "No worries, Jordan. See you later, man." I'll make notes saying things like, need to put in Bob Jones meets, Frank Sally or whatever it is.
For sure.
And then in the second pass, I'll put all those things in. But then I can't then read it again because I go blind to it and you just sort of high level it. So I always just like, that's it for me. And I'll just work from comments after that point because otherwise you're just sort of like staring and it's just streaming words that don't make any sense. So with Legion, with our authors that are with us, I always say to them that give me the document you want me to read, because if you give me it and then take it away and then give me it again, I'm not going to be able to do the same.
Yeah, that first
read
by far the most valuable. Yeah. Like it's really tough. Like especially if you edit a bunch and like I'll go through like 3, 4, 5 drafts sometimes. Like my editor is getting every one, and like he'll ask me questions about something that was in the second draft, and it's like, how are you supposed to catch that sort of stuff? It's just everything's constantly changing.
As well, because you write stuff and you might delete that, as you say. So you've deleted that from the second version, but in your head you've still written those details in. So a later detail references that.
Yeah. So do you go like the whole way through all at once? Do you ever stop, or is it just no stop, full steam ahead until you're finished, basically?
I have to keep going because it's you'll know this. You have that feeling when it just flows and it's just like magic. And then the next day, it's like fucking glue coming out. Yeah. And you're just slogging on. For me, I start at, depending on what day it is, I start from like 8 in the morning to 10, depending on whether I've been to the gym and stuff or me and my wife have gone out for breakfast. And then I'll work through till 5. From Monday to Friday, I work 9 to 5 essentially, because if I don't, I'm a lazy bastard and I will just game all the time. And then nothing will get done. So instead I have like a set regime that I will do these hours. And then it means that those days when you don't really feel like writing, you might only get like 4,000 or 5,000 words. But then the next day where you really feel it and you get like 8,000 or 10,000, you're like, yes.
It's been a long time since I've had a 10,000 word day, man.
Do you sprint?
I'm jealous. I occasionally do. I've been trying, I feel like every time I do a book, I go through this process of I sit down, I don't want to write, but I need to write. So I do 2,000 words and it's terrible and I hate it, but at least something's down. And then I get to the 160,000 word mark and I go back and I'm like, oh man, if I could have just taken more time on this, I would have saved myself a lot of time editing, because now I'm rewriting it. So it feels like every book is slowly progressing to that. So I'm trying to get away from the sprint thing, but often for the first 30,000 words, that's how I have to do it. Otherwise, I just can't get myself. I just like will sit there and I'll write like 6 words and I'll pick my phone up and then 20 minutes goes away. And,
Yeah.
That's
why I started sprinting, because I'd just lose so much time getting distracted by something shiny.
Yeah, and it's so easy, especially like we've got social media stuff. You've got Discord. You've got your publisher. You've got all the stuff that you can do. That's also work. So it's not even like you're always screwing off, but the book's not getting written, and then if you could actually get 8 straight hours of writing it, it's so much quicker. But man, I'm not great about that. But yeah, I'm always trying to progress toward that. I do not have a map, actually. I have like really rough sketches of like when I first started. We probably will do a map once everything's finished, once the series is wrapped up. But yeah, until then, I'm basically afraid of like nailing everything down and then just getting stuff wrong. And like when there's not a map, I can be like, oh no, actually it's here.
Yeah.
Once you commit, you're out there.
See, for me, I'm cheating a little bit with that, because the Rise of Mankind series that I'm back to now, it's actually based in Newcastle. So I've got, I just bring up Google Maps and I can see the city of Newcastle, and I've spent a lot of time there, so I can always visualize it, and
that's very cool. That's like a Fallout 4 in Boston.
Yeah, pretty much.
I was actually living in Boston when that game came out. I was playing.
Yeah, and you were like.
It was interesting. It was like, not like, obviously you're not like fully rendering the whole thing, but you could go to like the rough areas and all that, like where we were living at the time, and it was very cool.
I bet that would, yeah. See, for me, growing up, but for me, until like sort of the last few years, I never had the kind of money where I could travel. Not like that. So it's like I couldn't go to America, which is far too fucking expensive.
It's a big trip for sure.
And then playing games like Fallout, these are the places I'll never ever see, so it doesn't really matter in that way, the fact that it's Boston, but it was cool.
Yeah.
And now it's like, we could go there, we could have a little dodge about it. I don't trust myself to start playing it properly, because if I do, I will fucking go. That's how you find your partners. Kyle, I'm not sure what you mean by that, if you mean fucking off abroad, or if you mean by playing Fallout, or... Please do explain. That was a strange one, or it might just be my brain's very strange, which I've got to admit it is. It's a pretty fucked up place.
I think it kind of has to be to have this be your job.
Yeah, because you're basically hallucinating and just writing instant reports for the entire day.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, actually, that's a good question. Like, are you plotting anything, or are you just?
Yeah. Answer. You?
Same. Yeah.
I
like having like an endpoint and like occasionally a midpoint, but that's
it. Cheater. No, I know roughly what I'm planning for the end of them, and beyond that, it's just a case of straight on.
Yeah.
No,
I've tried outlining. It's just, I don't know. Like I feel like I can do it, but then the characters always just never turn out the way I want with that. Like they just seem flat somehow.
I wrote for book 4. I wrote the full outline of everything that I intended. I spent like a couple of days writing the full plot out. Like, this is it. This is everything that's going to happen in the book. And then I finished the book and started book 5. And when I started book 5, I found that plot again. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And read it, and I was like, yeah, that would have been so much easier if I'd followed that. I'd just totally forgotten about it and just totally went off on a tangent. I was like, shit.
Yeah, I used to have to do them for every book for Portal. Like, part of the agreement we had was like I'd send in like a super rough outline to like talk about, and it quickly got to the point where like I was sending in these outlines and the book wouldn't resemble what it was in the outline like whatsoever. And it's like, why are we wasting our time pretending like any of this stuff is going to happen? Like, maybe like 1 or 2 like cool things end up getting jammed in, but I can't do it. I wish I could, because I feel like you can do like really cool stuff with like plot and like all that, but
massively so. Partners when it comes to art and merchant. Very true. Because I know of people that write that plotted out, but plotted out by chapter, and this is what's going to happen in this chapter, and this is like the high points. There you go. That's it, done. And when you think about it, because those days where you're just slogging on, it is slogging on, and with that outline, if you were following this chapter is going to do X, it would be so much easier.
Yeah, and even if it's like
alien.
even if you finish and you don't like it, you at least have like the right stuff in place. And like that's always like I feel like I have to have that before anything becomes like decent. Because my first drafts are completely like illegible. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like there are whole like arcs and like characters and like it's awful. Like I've got to the point where I try not to send it to my editor until it's like the third draft because I know what I'm going to get back. It's like this doesn't make sense. I'm like, yeah, like you're right. Like,
yeah. No, Byron, thank you, man. I'm really glad you enjoyed those. Yeah, I crack through because I do it with just like literally one whole pass, and then I go back and just do the full editing pass. I've thought a few times about doing that and then putting the book aside. So like write the entire book, edit the whole thing, put it aside, and get back to work on something else. So say I'm writing like Rise of Mankind now, so I do write all of the next book, write all the book after and the other book, and that's that series done. And then before I start Underverse, which is what I've said I'll be doing, instead write a totally different story, edit it, and then put it aside, and then go on to Underverse. But then come back to that one once I'm finished with Underverse, and then rewrite the whole thing, and just take the time and polish it. Because I often feel that, like, I don't know how you feel about it, but my books, I always say, I'm never going to win awards for them. They're popcorn.
Yeah.
It's it's not like a great steak meal or something or a dinner. It's a case of this is popcorn. Sometimes you just want popcorn and you're like, I know. Throw that in my face.
Absolutely. It's like I think some of it has like its roots like in the pandemic, like we're writing escapism for the most part, and the other thing too is like the turnaround times for the genre are so fast that it becomes like a calculation of diminishing returns, right? It's like how many editing passes can I do? Like, the first pass makes it, it's 80% of the quality you can put out. The next brings it up to 90 and that's worth it. But then you get to like, 92, 93, 94. And like, it's always this battle of like, do I release it earlier or do I polish it up more and risk everything falling out of the algorithm more than it already is?
Definitely so. But it's also a case of when you're polishing it, do you find that the flavor changes essentially? Because you'll just tweak things slightly and
yeah, I think the character stuff especially is what like really comes into play. Like I think like when I write a first draft, like I always just absolutely hate it. Like it always feels like super phoned in. And the only stuff that sticks around is like character stuff that gets polished up into being kind of what I think of as like the key moments.
I think that's about me working with Geneva. Yeah, she's freaked out by me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of screaming for sure.
Yeah. Like I say, I mean, that poor guy that was just messaging me as an editor just saying, why are you like this? These issues have issues. But it's, I don't know. I don't know what else I would do with my life now, with being essentially free to be mad. Because as an author, so when you talked about you always wrote, you always wanted to write. I never did.
Really?
It never crossed my mind to try and write. Because I was always like, well, I failed school, I was crap at all that kind of stuff. And I'm a bit thick. So I just thought, I can't do it. But I loved listening to audiobooks. I loved reading my entire life. And so now it's like, well, obviously I was learning from all of those all my life.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's really interesting, actually.
Because people say, like, oh, when you do the verbs and you do this, and I'm like, that's a word that means nothing to me.
Yeah, I'm terrible about all of that stuff. Like I just write in a way that I hope sounds normal, and then I depend on my copy editor to like fix all the like random errors and so on. Like the diagramming sentences stuff in like I don't know if you did that, but like in English, like I hated that. I was so bad at it, which is really like ironic looking back, or maybe not. But yeah, all of the technical aspects of writing, and that's what's kind of fun about like this genre too, is that like there's not the same sort of emphasis on that. Like it's an emphasis on storytelling and characters and whatever else. So it does make it fun.
Yeah, it's a strange world. Sorry. So you talk about Discord, so you're in Discord quite a bit. And Reddit? I mean, do you spend a lot of time in Reddit? Or?
I spend a good amount of time browsing. I've definitely like dialed back from it. I used to be on it like just absolutely constantly. Nowadays, I'm definitely most active on Discord, um, which is just far and away my favorite platform, probably. But
Definitely.
yeah, still use the Lit RPG Reddit all the time, Progression Reddit, Facebook too, especially like around release times.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've been trying to get more and more away as time goes on. Probably won't ever happen with Discord because I don't know, it just feels like it doesn't feel like work when you're just like chatting with people.
Yeah.
Like Reddit and all, and it feels a little different somehow. But it's amazing to watch that community grow. I don't know if like you were looking at it when we were first published, but it was like 4,000 people. And if you look at the Lit RPG Reddit now, it's like 70,000 or something like that. Like it's an insane explosion in size.
I mean, for me, I was warned when I first started out, like, I'll stay away from Reddit. It's just full of trolls.
Mm.
And my first couple of interactions on Reddit were very, very unpleasant. So I just stayed away from it. I was just like, that's it, leave it alone. Until about a year ago, I just stayed away, and it was like, no, that's it. It's just not worth my time on there because so many people were so aggressive. Not
Yeah.
necessarily like about me or about my books, but just when people are asking questions and they were just like going at them, I was just like, I don't need this. I've got a limited amount of time. So man, it's precious. Depends on his editors. I'll be screwed. Love you too, mate. But it's a case of, you've only got so many hours in the day, and I thought I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
But then Reddit is the biggest one now.
Yeah.
So it just gets bigger and bigger, and you go, well, I need to spend some time there. I need to.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do, sometimes it's really great interactions. I mean, we first started talking on Reddit, and you get some people that you talk to, and you're like, this is brilliant. I really enjoying talking to you. And then other people, you're like, fuck me, staying away from this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely exploded. It's crazy to think about because like the Facebook groups, were good size 3 or 4 years ago, but they have not increased the same way.
They've pretty much stayed static.
Yeah.
It's very strange. I think it's because a lot of people now, Facebook changes their algorithms so regularly that you're like, nobody's got a clue what's going on with it, and you're going,
yeah, it's tricky. That's what's like so nice about Reddit is like you throw something up and like everyone sees it. Like it's simple. It's like here is the thing, and then Facebook, is it's tied in like how much interaction are you getting, because if you get a lot, then we'll show it to 40% of people. And it's just like you're constantly playing this game.
Yeah. It's all right, BJ, man. It's all right.
It's cool that they pop up like that.
I know it is, isn't it? So, dude, are you going to come to any of the conventions next year? Are you going to come to JordanCon or?
I don't know. Like the first one, I'll probably do DragonCon at this point. I don't know if it will be this year, but I would like to. And like I recently, we got. This is going to sound like they're dead, but we recently got rid of our chickens. So all of a sudden, I'm able to travel. They got employed as pest elimination experts at a random place here in Wilmington. Yeah, I like
a bit of a random story there.
Yeah. We've had them for the last like 4 or 5 years, and I've just been watching them, and so it's sort of been like kind of stuck in one place, and now I can finally kind of travel around. So I'm planning on it, but I don't have any immediate plans for the for like JordanCon or any of that. Well, I would like to.
JordanCon, I mean, I've been to DragonCon the last 2 years, but last year it was just manically busy, like overly busy, and it was just too many people.
Oh, really?
And it was like 100,000 people in a small space, but it's like manically busy, and like the bars, it's taking you half an hour to get served, and then you get served, and by the time you turn around, you're like, I'm gonna have to go and queue at the bar again to get another round of drinks, and so it was a bit too much for me for last year. I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. But we went to JordanCon instead because it's the home of Robert Jordan. It's the convention around Robert Jordan and his works around the Wheel of Time. And they'd reached out and they were happy to host a Lit RPG track. So Geneva and Emily put the track together, and Sound Booth Theatre, Emily rather, and it was just brilliant fun. It was about 1,000 people, but it was 1,000 readers. When for DragonCon, it's this absolutely manic event, and there's sort of 5,000 to 10,000 dedicated readers there, but spread across such a busy place, you're only going to get access to a couple of hundred. While here we had like 1,000 readers all going through the building, all coming through to our panels and stuff. So it was really good fun.
Yeah.
But it's also a lot cheaper than Dragon Con, and the biggest advantage to it for me, from my side of it, is that first of all, there wasn't the massive queues for the bar, but we were all getting together, and it's a case of on like the night times, you can come and sit with us all, and the fans were coming and sitting in the middle of the group and like having Matt Dinham and like flicking their ears and like all of us all around, because there weren't that many of us. There was like about 100. So we could all get to know each other rather than at Dragon Con, you're like sardines.
It's like the faceless masses.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'll do Dragon Con again, to be honest with you. I think I'm probably going to just stick with Jordan Con and then whatever else we end up doing. But it's...
Yeah. Where does Jordan Con end up being?
It's in Atlanta. Yes, but it's in April rather than being the end of August, beginning of September.
Okay.
So it was good fun.
Yeah. I'll definitely keep mine for next year. That's still pretty close to me.
I mean, Geneva drove down from North Carolina as well, so it's...
Yeah, it's cool that she's so close. That's like an hour and change from me.
Yeah, the Lit RPG Under the Sea was, Paul, it was brilliant. See, so the way that everybody gathered around there so the Lit RPG Under the Sea event was what Emily and Geneva arranged last year at Dragon Con, and it was in the aquarium, and there was like 800 people turned up to it, and it was 800 authors and Lit RPG fans. So it was just all of us, just like having a great time. And that was what Jordan Con was like, because it was just all of us in like a decent size, rather than at Dragon Con, as brilliant as it is and absolutely manic as it is, it's like it's really into cosplay and comics more than anything else.
Yeah, it's like a huge like industry like unto itself, basically, at this point, right?
Exactly. But then it feels like that we were all just sort of shoehorned into the side and around everything else.
Yeah.
So it worked out better for me anyway. I definitely enjoyed it.
I mean, I'm not a fan of those kinds of crowds either, to be honest. So
yeah, because a lot of them don't believe in deodorant or washing. Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Jordan Con for better overall for being more Lit RPG focused. Yeah, it was also fun because we did things like we played. Matt Dinham hosted a game of Cards Against Humanity, and there was about 20 of us drinking heavily, like bottles of rum and stuff, like each. That we're all just like playing Cards Against Humanity, and people are walking past, and we must have traumatized so many people because they're quite. The Wheel of Time is like an institution. It's very respectful, very cool, very an older grouping generally.
Like one of the pillars of fantasy, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And then Lit RPG comes crashing in like a train wreck on fire. And we're all just like grabbing people, throwing them out the way to get to the bar. It was brilliant. I mean, we are looking at it, Paul. Hopefully it's just something that it'll take a little bit of time to organize. But we did things like Geneva got engaged. Geneva got engaged at Jordan Con.
Oh, that's so cool.
Because one of our group wanted the DJ to play a specific song and he wouldn't. But if you got engaged, you could pick a song. So he walked out and went, right, who's willing to get engaged? And she was like, I'm up for it. So they got engaged on the dance floor. And then the guy played a completely different song, and Chris ended up doing, I think it was "I'm Too Sexy" for something like that. It was like Right Said Fred, "I'm Too Sexy." It was not the song he asked for, but by the end of that night, we were all absolutely leathered and having a great time, and it was worth it. Steve, it was such a car crash, but brilliant time. And going down like the next morning and you're having breakfast and you're seeing everybody coming down, and you can see sort of the rest of the Wheel of Time lot who had some heavy drinkers in them, but they're generally quite sort of fresh and, let's get on with the day. And everywhere around us, you've got the Lit RPG, lots of like lying on tables, just going, I'm dying.
Everybody's got sunglasses on and just
like, oh God. It was brilliant fun. It really was.
Yeah, that sounds like a blast.
It's definitely good. We'll definitely be doing it again next year. Put it that way. We'll see if we can arrange a Lit RPG only convention though, because that would be cool. That would
be a blast for sure.
we're talking about it at the moment, and talking about like where do we host it, how do we do it, and do we sell like tickets to it beforehand to be able to pay for the whole thing? Because I mean that's probably the best way of doing it. And then the real thing becomes, do we do it in Florida so that we can teach Florida man what real carnage is? You know, just like an entire new wave of Florida man memes. Or do we do it somewhere else in the US where it's a lot cheaper for alcohol because we're all going to be badly drunk?
Yeah.
As long as lots of rum, I'm up for it, to be fair. So, but yeah, I mean, if we do another one, hopefully you'll come and it'll be an absolute.
Yeah, sounds like a good blast. Yeah, I'll definitely consider it for sure.
It'll be good fun regardless. I mean, that's the best thing about lit RPG is that nobody takes themselves too seriously.
Yeah, it's a great genre. Honestly, everyone I've met, all the fans, it's just fantastic people.
It's very true. So, dude, we've got obviously book 5 coming out in what, weeks? No, sorry, the end of the month.
Yeah, like 3-4 weeks, something like that.
3-4 weeks, cool. What's happening from there? We're getting book 6.
Yeah. This one's sort of like this is sort of like the end of the story I set out to tell. I originally thought it was gonna be 3 books, and I was like way off, as it turns out. So yeah, now we're on 5. There will be at least one more. I'd be really surprised if that was the last one. I think probably 7 is where I'm thinking of wrapping it, but it could end up, the same sort of thing where it ends up taking another 3 or 4. But yeah, definitely won't be the last.
And what about after that? Are you going to stay with? I mean, if you got an idea for another story straight after this, or
sort of like I've had like so many ideas in my head, but I'm afraid to like sit down and start working on them because I know that like the moment I start, I'm going to be like, oh man, like this new series doesn't have all of the issues that I created for myself that I'm now keeping track of across 5 books. This is so much easier, blah blah blah. And then the release times go from a year per book, which is already kind of slow for our genre, especially like post Royal Road. But it definitely will be a lit RPG.
Hey Brian,
I don't think I'll do VR again in all likelihood. I do enjoy writing it, but it's also there's a lot of things you need to think about. Like it's hard to like come up with something you think is like really cool, and then you bring it to your editor, and they're like, "This is fantastic," but it would never be allowed in a game. You're like, okay,
yeah,
right, that sort of stuff. What gave you your inspiration for Ripple? Like the system as a whole, or like just the books? If it's just the books, probably just gaming in general, really, and like. Weirdly enough, the Ripple system as a whole didn't actually exist in the first book that I submitted to Portal. Like all of that came like after the fact. But just mostly playing games and like always thinking it was cool. Like remember when the gates of like On Courage opened in like vanilla, and there was like one person who got to do that. It was like Scarab Lord or whatever it was. I always thought those were like really cool moments in games. I wanted to build something based on that. And that's where we ended up.
It's worked out well for you, dude. It's a brilliant series.
Yeah.
And no, it's genuinely, I've really enjoyed the time that I've spent reading them and listening to them, because I chop and change. So sometimes I'll, if I'm on a night time, for example, if I'm reading in bed, if I'm not reading submissions, then I'm reading through like the stories. But if I'm in the car, I'll get into the car and drop the kids off at nursery and go and do like various jobs, and then I'll put the audiobook on, and that'll cover that bit, and then I'll get home and do other things, and then it's onto the book. So being able to match the two and ask you, do you want to skip ahead? I'm like, yeah, get on. I've listened to all this.
Yeah.
But it's so convenient for that side of it, and it means that everybody gets 2 sales out of me, so rather than just the one. But it's really weird because I used to be a welder for a lot of years, and I'd spend my days with this really heavy suit on, all my backpack, all my gear, helmet on, and then audiobook on, and it'd just be a case I'd put my headphones in, I'd press play, close my helmet, and then that was it. I was in another world, and I'm listening to these wonderful stories while working on fucking welding insane bits and burning myself to half the death.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful because I have these stories, and for me it was great because I could go. I'd worked generally 12-hour shifts, and most of the books that we did are out were like 8. I love the exploding bunnies. Yeah, would be like 8 to 10 hours, and then you find some which were like 20 hours, and that was great because that would last you nearly 2 shifts, and you're like, yes, I love you too, Jay. Though you are right, he is the ever cool. So I always like big books because they just feel like right. Because I was always a fan of like Peter F. Hamilton, for example, and his books are chunky fucks.
Mm.
And you write the same. You write big chunky books.
Yeah, they're big boys.
You never tell
I
them to do little
feel the
ones.
same way. It's like you get to like just exist in that world for longer. And it's just something like it's just like so like immersive, and I have a hard time like jumping like from book to book for whatever reason. Like once I stop something, it's always difficult for me to go back to it. But I very rarely will ever stop something like once I've started, because once you're invested, it's just I don't know, it's just so easy to just kind of sit there and just listen and just go along with it.
Yeah. Love you
It's
too,
true.
Jay. Yeah. Damn right.
What's your longest one to date? I'm pretty sure you had one over 3, didn't you?
I've got one that's 310, I think, and one that's 413.
413?
Yeah.
Wow, so you're over the KU cap at that point, I think.
No, thankfully I wasn't with that. But
No?
it was
Really?
no, yeah, it just worked out on it. But I did omnibuses afterwards.
Oh yeah.
And I put that was book 6 is 413,000. And I think with the edit of the second edition, it came in about 415 because the problem for it was 828 pages. You can't do books through Amazon that are more than 828 pages for print. They won't do it, period. So that's why we couldn't do them. But we ended up doing the omnibus for books 1 and 2 of Underverse, which came to about 450,000 words, about 480 for the second omnibus. And we did the third as a digital omnibus. We'd only did them all as digital omnibuses, but that's because book 5 was like 300,000, and then 417,000 or whatever it came to in the end, the second edition. So it ended up as just far too big. We couldn't make them physically into omnibus, like proper print versions. So we just didn't bother because you can't. Yeah.
Well, those are big books, man. Is it like when you're writing like straight through, is that like the thing I hate most is like when I start and I've gotten to like 40 or 50,000 and I feel like I'm getting somewhere, and then I look at my word target and I'm like, I'm going to 220, and like I feel like I've already written, like what would largely be like a short novel in like the adult fiction world or like whatever. And actually it's just the first, 15% or something like that. Like man, and thinking about going to 400 just like makes me like tense up.
Honestly, for me, it was a case of I'd always said that I would write the Underverse series in seasons. So I'd have season 1 would be sort of entering the world and getting stabilized, and that's books 1 to 6. And so I had all these little events and little sort of secondary plot lines that to finish it all in 6 books had to be tied up in this book. And I was like, I will do it. I'm going to do it.
Print version be damned.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even know about the 828 pages until we were putting it together for the final bit. And then we were like, shit. Because of all things, it worked out.
Or something.
Yeah, well, it was the back matter. You're like, oh, if you like my books, you might like Bob's books and stuff like that. All of those were flagging it and saying, you can't have this in, it's too big. And we were like, shit. When it first came out, we were like, shit, it's too big. What am I going to do? I'm going to have to cut out bits of the story. And I was saying, oh, it's just a couple of pages. Like, oh, thank God. But it was a real fight to get it within size that could work.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
But it was also good, though, because you finish with it and you'll find this exactly to read out. Yeah, Kyle, good question there, dude.
Actually, Portal arranged that. So that was I always say it's probably the single best thing that they did for me was hook me up with Travis, because like now when I'm writing, like I have his voices like completely dialed in my head, like as I'm writing dialogue, and it's like it's such a gift to like have like a concrete voice. Like I never had that before. Like I'd have characters, but I'd never thought to give them voices. Like I'm not like talented like in that way whatsoever. And like now it's completely inseparable from the way he voices them. Like especially House and Frank, especially are just like so distinctive. And like I know like my neighbors are hearing me. Like when I'm writing, I'm usually like working dialogue out and like I'm saying it or shouting it or whatever. And I just know that my neighbors walked by and heard me just like shouting in this like weird ass voice, like about the moon or something. They just keep on walking.
They're all just like,
Yeah.
don't make eye contact with a strange man.
Yeah, really weird looks for sure. Like living by yourself and just screaming at all hours of the day. But yeah, I love that guy to death. He's such a good guy. So insanely talented between like the video games to writing to the audio books, everything. But funnily enough, Torchlight 2 was a game that he designed, and some of House's abilities are actually based on the engineer from that game, which I did before ever knowing about his work, which was pretty funny.
I'd never known. I knew he'd worked in game design. I didn't know it was Torchlight 2.
Yeah. Absolutely amazing game. So good.
Learn something every day. Oh God, I see. There's so many games out there that I want to play as well. But then you go through patches where it's like knowing that Fallout 4 is being remastered. I'm like, I could go back to that.
Yeah, it's tempting. Yeah, I've been playing older stuff lately. I actually went back and started playing Slay the Spire. I don't know if you ever played that.
No, I don't think so.
It's like a card game, Monster Train for the King, like older like indie games, which has been a lot of fun. But probably be playing Diablo here in a couple weeks, and that new season comes out.
See, I tried it. I've got Diablo, and it was good, but it wasn't. I think it's the top-down isometric scroller, which for me just doesn't really work. I like first person.
Was that Diablo 4 that you tried?
Yeah, I mean, I played, I think it was 2 or 3 I loved that I spent a lot of time on, and then I didn't play on for a lot of years, and then the latest one, I was just like...
Yeah. Diablo 4 was a little, like, rushed. Like, it definitely, like, wasn't... Like, I'm hoping that, like, Season 4 gets it to where, like, it should have been. I still really enjoyed it when it came out, but it was obvious that it was, like, not ready.
Yeah.
And, like, I played it a bunch the first season and haven't touched it since. And normally I play those games every single season.
Yeah. What about Starfield? Did you play that?
I haven't played that yet, actually.
I really enjoyed that, but it got a lot of people hated it. Basically, 'cause it wasn't Elder Scrolls 6, so loads of people hated it for that. But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get Elder Scrolls 6 here in the next 15 years or so.
Yeah, I can't believe that it's been so fucking long since that came out. I mean, 13 years.
Yeah, it's insane to think about, honestly. Although I think we're supposedly getting a new Civ game sometime soon.
Are we?
I heard something about it. I think it was like soon, as in like this year or next year. It could have been speculation, but oh man, I would love to just hole up and just disappear playing that for a while. Like, oh, so good.
Yeah, I mean, I told my wife that I was taking. So with burnout, I don't know if you've experienced burnout. I've been sort of battling it a lot last year into this year, and my wife and I sort of sat down. She sent me away for a few days to Mallorca and just had 3 days away, which was nice in a hotel, just basically on my own. She took my phone and everything off me, and I was just like, I've got to actually relax, and it was really good for me. But then part of that, and talking to other people, Chatfield especially was saying, and he's given a few speeches at a few of the conventions I've been to, saying about the best way to combat these things is to enforce downtime and to do things like we do, gaming nights and stuff like that with your friends, where you just make yourself have time off, because we tend to push ourselves too hard. And it just really helps to do that. But Chatfield was saying about having 2 weeks at the end of each book. So 2 weeks where you don't do any work, you just have 2 weeks of gaming or drinking or doing whatever you want. And the theory behind that is lovely. But I finished this book a week ago, and all this last week I've been prepping for the next book. And I started it already. And I'm back on it from Monday. It's like, I'm planning to have that 2 weeks, but I just never ever do. But the reason I'm mentioning is I had told my wife that when Starfield came out, I was taking 2 weeks off straight. and I was going to play it, and I fully intended to, and I didn't because of various things.
Mhm.
But if Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, I am taking 2 goddamn weeks off.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
At least, yeah, I try to do that, but it's like it's always weird the way everything like it's you just sort of like shift. You know, like you finish a book and you send it off, and then it shifts into social media, or it shifts into planning for the next book, or it shifts into admin, or um, yeah, it just feels like there's always something that needs to be done. Comfort trope when reading lit RPG. That's a hard question, honestly. I mean, I really enjoyed like overpowered main characters just in general, even though like I don't really have one. At least not yet, anyway. Um, but I've been watching a bunch of anime lately, like a lot of just like isekai trash, basically, where the main character is just ridiculously overpowered and just curb stomps everyone, and that's the whole story. And somehow that's just really fun, just to watch that happen like over and over and over and over again. So I guess just that in general, like I know a lot of our genre is like power fantasy or like some variant of it. But I feel like that promise is pretty comforting a lot of times.
It is, because it's like action films, like
Mhm.
superhero
Yeah,
action films.
exactly.
You know
Yeah.
there's going to be some stress. You know they're going to lose their powers, or they're going to get beaten up by somebody bigger or someone for a little period of it, and then they're going to lose the temper, and everything's magically fixed, and they're always going to get to the end and win. And that's how I write things. Is it's always
Yeah.
going to be, you got the peaks and
Yeah.
troughs. Are you a Brandon Sanderson fan?
I am. Yeah. I love Sanderson. Yeah, absolutely.
The Way of Kings.
Mm-hmm. I
I
have not actually caught up with it, but I did read the first 2, 3, and then they come out so far apart and they're so huge that there's so much going on that I was just like, I'm just gonna wait. Like I can't go back and reread these, but
I found them difficult to get into at first.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then you get into it and it's like, oh, this is brilliant. But then you have characters like Shalon or whatever, and you're like, I don't care anything for this whiny bitch.
yeah.
But
It's hard, honestly. Like any of that like multi POV type stuff.
yeah,
Like it was always like I wanted to get to Cladden's story.
yeah,
Um,
Kaladin's brilliant. But then you have
yeah,
like, Adolin, and it's like he's kicking off about this and all that. And you're like, for fuck's sake, just stab somebody. You feel much better in
yeah,
life. And he does,
yeah.
but that's a different story.
And it's also hard because like the beginning of that book is like deliberately like obtuse. Like
Mhm.
you need a major name to even publish that because it's like a prologue to a prologue to a prologue, and it's like shifting to all these different characters, like some of whom die, some of whom were alive 1,000 years ago, and then it shifts to the main character, but then it's actually one of 3 main characters, and then there's actually more main characters, and like it's amazing, and it's like definitely worth pushing through that first bit, but it is a lot for sure.
It is, but for me, the problem with them, and I love the series, so don't get me wrong, I'm not slagging it off here, but the problem from it is it's always the same pattern.
Yeah,
And it's always, he's got no power. He's building up. He's getting, oh, look how powerful he is. Oh, he's made a cock up. He's now down here. Oh, everybody hates him. Everybody hates him. He's lost everything. Oh, look, he's building up again. And it just goes.
mm-hmm.
But it was the same pattern. For me, it was the Dalinar Colin one. That was the end of it. I couldn't read past that because he was such a good character and such a good, like, honorable guy. And then he just fucked it. If you haven't read it, but there's just a lot of it. He was just a shit, and he lost his memories from it, and he's a new guy basically because so many of his memories were lost. But then these memories are coming back, and it was like you're tearing down the good character, like Star Wars, Vader. I always liked Vader because I'm an evil bastard, naturally. I always liked Vader. I disliked intensely the story where Anakin becomes Vader because you see a hero fall. And it's that sort of like depressing, any of us could do this type of thing.
Yeah.
And that was exactly my problem with The Way of Kings. You could see Dalinar Kholin falling all the way. You could see Adolin falling. You could see Kaladin falling. And if it had been one of them falling, and then rebuilding and stuff, it would have been great. It would have been fantastic. But it was everybody. You were like,
Which is so different. It's so different for our genre too, because it's like you can't, like the power curve is that. Right, and there's different levels. There's like something like Cradle, not exactly lit RPG, but it's like a slow creep up, and then you've got other books where it just goes exponential from the beginning, or something like One Punch Man, or like there's also which I absolutely love. Speaking of like comfort type stuff, but yeah, it's so interesting, and like you mentioned like losing powers, and which is like one of like the big like things in the genre where it's like if you do that, like you need a really 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 good reason, because that's like what we read for is like the progression, and then you take that away, and it's like a punch to the stomach, right? Like where's my dopamine? The numbers aren't going up anymore.
Yeah, literally, because it is dopamine. It is just like little ticks. It's little.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find when you're writing, when you're actually working through the books, do you find that it throws you off totally when you're having to put in the prompts, like the system notifications and stuff?
I usually don't do them actually. Like I just leave a note usually. If I'm doing like items or something, I'll usually just be like, I received 3 pieces of loot, and I'll just copy and paste like an earlier one so that I have like the word count roughly correct, and then I'll go back through on the next edit draft and go through and fill it in and give them like abilities that'll be relevant in the fights. I find like it's a lot easier to just kind of like come up with a new ability that's cool in a fight and then go back and tether it to an item so that it seems relevant. But I like the item creation for the most part. I do feel like as the series has progressed, it's hard to keep it interesting, because like when you have 10 strength, going up to like 15 feels really cool. But when you have like 450 and you go to like 510, it's kind of like, it's up, but like, it's not doubling.
It doesn't mean,
Yeah, so like it kind of like the oomph has to come from somewhere else, which is like a fun challenge, but is also kind of tricky. But for the most part, like I enjoy the crunchy aspects. It's always a little scary, like worrying about audio and like how that comes off. Because weirdly enough, I'm like probably 85% audio at this point. It's like a huge split between my ebook and audio. But yeah, it's definitely the sort of thing where if I'm feeling really good, I don't want to sit down and do 400 words of stats.
Yeah. For me, it's very much a case of you're reading through it. It's like, right, everything's going to go in a great flow, and now I've got to write the stats.
Now you got to do basic math, which
seems
haven't
like actually math.
No,
no, not good for me.
Yeah, the first book I was like super super careful. I was like mathing out every single point, and like as the series has gone, like it's become harder and harder to keep track of all that stuff, and you're constantly introducing like new variables that you can't even account for. So it's like I can't actually be wrong about anything because it's not giving the full information, but I still feel like it needs to be calculated.
Yeah,
it's a weird spot to be.
Very, very much. I know exactly what you mean there. We had an editor that was helping with mine that was brilliant at that kind of thing. And it got to the point where I just trusted him implicitly because he would do the actual math and he'd message me and just say, hey, your math on this is wrong. It should have been 2 levels he's gained. This is what he should have had. This is it. And I'd be like, right, just mark a note on it and I'll just chuck that in and I'll change it and I'll make it work. And then he did that fantastically for about 4 or 5 books. And then on the omnibus editions, when I was doing the rewrite, he had some personal issues and just went off the rails and was just making numbers up. And it came back, and when we found out, we realized what had happened, and he just sort of, and we were like, fuck, everything is fucked. All of the changes we've made are fucked. It was like, no, and it cost like 3 months worth of working our ass off to get everything fixed in time, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah, like once you make a mistake too, like it just builds on itself, right? Because that mistake gets included in every single thing going forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a killer, but it's one of those strange things that once it starts, you just like, and you're searching until you can find where the error was.
Yeah.
Everything becomes suspect.
And then it's where it runs through all the rest. That was something I learned a little bit too late. Was like with doing my stats, like I sort of created it where I had to manually check it every time, like independent of the previous stat block. That way, if I was wrong, nothing could be carried through. if that makes sense. So like the
Yeah.
stats mostly come from like gear, which is constantly changing, and then there are flat bonuses. So you just calculate the base and then you throw the gear on. But obviously, depending on the system, that that's I have like a strict VR one, so that sort of stuff's pretty commonplace. But
Yeah.
I wish I had learned that earlier. So many things, honestly.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me that I wish I'd learned from the beginning was keep a goddamn spreadsheet. Don't try and keep it in your head, because that doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, I started doing comments where like anytime I have a stat sheet, like I'll do a comment that just says stat sheet check. That way I can pull up any document and I can go through and search for that term, and then 6 results will pop up and I can jump between them.
Yeah. For me, it's always Control F on Word documents, having like IQ instead of intelligence or something on the stat sheet. So it's that Control F IQ is only shown on those, or perception or whatever, and you're like straight to it.
Yeah, for sure. Or like a level colon, something like that would never appear in dialogue.
Yeah, it's the weird little tricks that you come up with to try and keep yourself in.
That's what's so enticing about like starting something new and being like, oh man, like I've learned so much about like what not to do. Like you start something new, and then it's like, oh, it's gonna make it so hard to go back and then, work around this system that's been built up after book after book after book.
Definitely. For me, it's going to be weird because now I'm back to Rise of Mankind. It sort of went, Underverse was like the crunchiest of my series, then Rise of Mankind, then Arise, and then the others were sort of all significantly less crunchy. And now it's a case of I've just written 800 and with the art and books, I've just written about 1.2 million words, all in like non-crunchy stuff.
Yeah.
And now I'm going back to crunchy, and it's like trying to get that back into your head and get your head back into the right place for it.
It's a hard headspace, and like it's like I think that's what partially makes it so tempting to go back, is to like think about like a system that can be integrated in a way that feels like natural and is easy to keep track of. But then of course the reality comes, and you write that story and it's nowhere close to what you're envisioning. Right. But do you think you'll stick with the more crunchy stuff going forward, or do you think you're sort of like the genre has kind of like drifted away a little bit from the crunchier aspect?
The genre has definitely drifted away from it in quite a big way. I think it's I don't know. I mean, for me, I'm going to be writing these last 3 books now. Thanks, Jay. I'm going to be writing these last 3 books in Rise of Mankind, which is sort of a medium one. And then after that, I've got 5 books left to write in Underverse, which is be very crunchy. So by that point, that's like, and that's going to be the end of this year before I start those. Yeah. And it's like that, the genre could have changed totally, and we all hate crunchy now, and I'm like,
yeah, what's gonna do, right? And it changes so fast too. Like, right, like the Royal Road stuff coming over was like a total sea change for the genre, right? Like it was
massively so.
Everything's different.
Massively. Royal Road's a strange one, because I would have loved to have done Royal Road more, but obviously going on it and finding people rip my work off it,
which
that just killed it for me.
So common. Yeah.
I've heard that from so many people. I mean, I know Harmon Cooper, for example. He was saying he's had his up 4 times now. It's been ripped off and put on Amazon.
Yeah, I think to some extent it's sort of like an inevitability.
But then,
how popular it's become.
But it's also, I mean, you can change the settings, so you can't control paste.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's just very... I hope they do fix it, because Royal Road could be so good, and I'd love to be able to use it, but obviously after my experience now, I'm like, stay away from it.
Especially with like lasting damage to your account and so on, right? Like and like even aside from that, like even if you didn't have that and like you get caught with some sort of plagiarism thing by like an auto checker, when a book is coming out and you lose those first like 2 to 3 days of launch, they're not going to give you another launch. Your book's dead basically.
Exactly.
Anything like that is just terrifying.
It is. It's genuinely. Final question for me: who's your lit RPG author mentor that you aspire to write like? Kyle, I'll let you have that one first.
I don't know if I were to broaden it out to just like writing in general. I really like Christopher Moore, who did like A Dirty Job. He was one of my first like introductions to um, like humor writing for the most part. And like obviously my books aren't like pure humor, but it's definitely a big element of them. Sanderson is definitely like a big one for sure. When I was starting, I went through like all of his lectures and classes on writing and all of that. Those are probably the two big ones. What about you?
I'm not sure entirely.
It's a hard.
Probably for me, there's obviously Sanderson, definitely Peter F. Hamilton, because for just like the huge breadth of the space opera, essentially, because it's so overarching and the way that the stories run. If you've never tried Peter F. Hamilton, he's brilliant, and Great North Road is based out of Newcastle, where I am. So
Oh,
if you listen to the audio on that, the guy Toby Longworth, I think it was, that did the audio.
yeah.
He gets the accent so good for the area, and it was like,
That's awesome.
ah, man, yep, really, really good series. Probably if it's in lit RPG, probably Alaron. I get on really well with Alaron, and when I first started, he reached out, he gave me some advice. He was always kind, and good with me. So probably a lot of my style of stuff does come from that, because my first lit RPGs were The Land.
That's
So
mine.
yes, it was always like, this is fantastic, this is brilliant escapism. If it's not lit RPG, I would definitely say Sir Terry Pratchett,
Yeah,
because Pratchett, the way that he looked at the world was just so good.
yeah,
Especially things like the beginning of Guards, when Corporal Carrot at that point, is walking to the city of Ankh-Morpork, and one of the lines is something like, when you're 6 foot tall and the same across the shoulders, people tend to jump out at you from behind boulders and go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were someone else." And you're like, because you would, you'd leap out from behind, find this massively muscled, armored guy with a sword in his hand, and you'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, do you know where the shop is?" You'd find any excuse to fuck off. And it's things like that. It's that sense of realism in fantasy that I always loved.
yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, dude, we've talked obviously about the books. We've talked about games, because you've got to love the games in this genre. What do you think about Fallout? Have you seen the
I haven't
TV
actually
show?
watched it yet. I'm planning on binging the whole thing when it finishes.
It was finished now, I think.
Oh, is it done? Is it really?
I think so. I'm not sure. Does anybody know if it's, because there's 8 episodes out, and we watched all 8. I'm not
Wow, I
sure.
didn't
I
realize
think
it
it's
were,
finished.
I assumed it was like a one a week sort of thing. It'd be running for a little while.
I don't know, actually.
It gives me something to watch. I've heard fantastic things about it.
Really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that one. What else was it? Because there's a few things that have been coming out of late that are all based off games. Second season's been announced. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
I had heard, I was thinking, is it going to not? And it's brilliant, because the more stuff that's coming out that's game based, it's going to drive more people into lit RPG. Which,
and like look at anime too. Whether or not they're like good ones. There's a VR anime like every single season, right? Like we had Shangri-La Frontier, which was like just amazing. This time you've got like the New Gate, I think, which isn't like strictly VR, but it kind of was. But there's still tons of stuff like that, and crossing over in interesting ways, and it's really cool to see.
It's one of those where you like, if it continues, it can only be good for all of us. So
sure.
I've just got to hope it keeps going, because
Yeah.
I really want more people to come to the genre to give us all their fucking money.
Yeah. And especially like with Matt getting I don't know if you saw Matt's book deal. Your Ace is fantastic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And just like the success of so many of the big serials, and just bleeding over into other formats like Primal Hunter, and I don't know if US Monsters got a webtoon the same way. But it's really cool to see. It's just growing and growing and growing, and just kind of creeping into general fantasy. And I feel very grateful that I got in 3 or 4 years ago now, because like as much as it's growing, it is definitely getting much more competitive at the same time.
Oh god, yes, hugely so. Because when you say, so when I read The Land, I went on straight on a binge for lit RPG, and there was Ascend Online, which was my next one, and there was
completionist.
but that was pretty much there was only like a dozen different books out, and that was it.
Yeah.
And you were like, and once you'd read those, because you went into them and you just, whoa, this is brilliant. You went straight through. And you're like, now what? And you went back to other series and to normal books, and you're like, this is crap.
Yeah. It's not that dopamine hit that you've gotten used to. Did you read Reincarnation of the Strongest Sword God by chance?
I didn't.
That was one of the interesting ones where I read like the machine translation of it, and it was so interesting because it was so clearly machine translated, and it was these like blocky little sentences, and despite that, it managed to be completely and utterly addicting at the same time. And I just like ripped through it and read like all 7 books that were available on Kindle. It was just like the power of like that sort of like dopamine hit is just like, it's insane, honestly.
Yeah, it's one of those where I really wanted to get into it, but it's when I know there's a bad translation, it just irritates me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's definitely like it's like I don't know, turning your brain off in a very specific way to like get through and read it.
Yeah, it's one of those where you've got to. Unfortunately, it's just I can't. It's much like playing Civ 4 or Civ 3 or something. I loved those games when they came out. Crappy graphics now. I can't do it. I just can't do that to myself.
Yeah.
But so dude, have you seen the 10 pages of Lit RPG with virtual voice? Oh yeah, fuckers, yeah. So there's with the virtual voice stuff that's come out, there's so many people have put Lit RPG on virtual voice. It's just a car crash.
Yeah, I know. Like Audible, like on the Reddit for the longest time was like, how do I filter out virtual voice because you're just getting hundreds and like thousands of listings just flooding the market. It was like the same thing I had with like Kindle early on, and that largely continues. Where it's like a business model of getting one read for a book that was free to create, and then doing that 10,000 times in a day.
Yeah, just boils my piss.
Yeah.
So, dude, what we always do with these with these lives, whenever we do them, primarily these are because we sit in our room, we sit in our office, we sit in our house or whatever, and we just work, and we don't get to talk to real people very often. So I always like doing these. So thank you for coming on with us, and thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
I've wanted to know you for ages because I've always had a lot of respect for you for your books, and you're cool to talk to when we've have a bit of banter online. So it's good to actually meet you a bit more.
Yeah,
hopefully we'll get some beers at Jordan Con or wherever it is and get to know you properly and abuse you. So what we always finish with the lives is there any books that you've read recently that you want to shout out that you think maybe they haven't got enough of enough recognition, that have been lost in the morass of all the launches?
I could shout out the first Necromancer is a book that just came out through my publisher. It's done by my editor Brooke. It's done pretty well. But the second book is currently underway. It's a system apocalypse style book. Really, really fantastic. I think the name is Cold Fang 89. He's working really hard. He's a great guy. So I had to pick one. That's probably the book I would pick.
No, that's good. I've seen a lot about it. I've started reading it. I haven't finished reading it yet because for me at the moment I've got to work through the submissions we get. So I'll start reading it and then I have to stop and work through submissions, and then it's like I'll come back to it and I'll read a couple more chapters. Then a submission comes in and I'll. So at the moment, unfortunately, we're about 2 months behind on submissions because there's been that many. So I treat myself to, on a weekend, I have like a Saturday night and a Sunday night where I read what I want to read instead of reading what.
Like you've got your own writing, you've got reading for the writing, you've got the reading for pleasure. Like the only time I really get it anymore is like car rides with audio. It's like the only time I can get myself to just like focus.
Yeah. Oh, I know exactly what you mean, dude. Definitely. For me, I'd probably recommend two at the moment that I've been reading. Kyle, Genius. This is a big stretch for me, but definitely for Kyle there. Let's see if this can pick this one up. A Forest of Vanity and Valor. Right? Now these ones, this is AP Bezic, and really enjoyed these, really. Not lit RPG, but very, very well written fantasy. Really enjoyed that. It's also, how to describe these? It's a bit like a lot of the old British sort of like tales, like Robin Hood, King Arthur, and these kind of characters, these tales. rewritten, and it's brilliant. So I would definitely recommend that one to anybody that wants a bit of fantasy. It's not a massive book, but you can buy them online on TikTok, and they are doing fantastic. It's really enjoyed that Levanthia series, so A Forest of Vanity and Valor. And the other one, which it looks like it hasn't been opened because I've been reading it on Kindle, is our own Shin Hofan's Heavenly Chaos. This came out just before JordanCon, and he was giving away copies of this. I think he brought about 500 copies to give away, and so signed, though you can't see it there for the bright light. But those are the two books that I've been reading of late that I've really, really enjoyed. So post your recommendations, please. No, I'm not posting it. It's fucking my copy. I'm not sending that anywhere. No, but seriously, I really enjoyed both of those, so I will put them up. And yeah, it's been nice to talk to you, mate. It's been good.
Yeah, it's been a blast, man. Thanks again.
Thank you for coming on. And if you ever fancy joining us in Discord, like I say, we're on there. Our times are a little bit different to you, but it depends on what time of the day you're on. There's generally somebody in the Discord that's always sprinting, so you're always welcome to join us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll be starting again here in 3 or 4 weeks, so I'll take you up on it for the start of the next book.
Yeah, the start is always painful.
Yeah,
like you're just chugging away and you're looking at it and you're like 17,000 words and you're like, fuck.
It's the worst feeling, honestly. As soon as you hit 100,000, it starts feeling better. But until then, like, oh god, not fun. Still great.
When you hit that 100,000, you're like, right, I'm over that bit. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Byron. Well, we shall fuck off, ski, and thank you all, anybody that joined us. Really, it's been fun talking.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.